"That'll be $3.50, honey," I said, smiling at the student in front of me. Another day serving lunch at Westbrook Academy, where the children of CEOs and senators learn calculus in classrooms with ocean views. Madison, my stepdaughter, walked past with her usual crowd of friends, deliberately avoiding eye contact. I caught fragments of their conversation. "God, so embarrassing." "And can't believe your dad married." I kept my smile firmly in place, just like I have for the past 5 years. The diamond ring on my finger caught the fluorescent light, the only hint that I might be something more than what these teenagers saw. "Thanks, Mrs. Roberts." The boy I'd just served beamed at me. Thomas, a scholarship student, always polite. "The mac and cheese is awesome today." "Secret ingredient is love." I winked, though actually it was truffle oil and aged Gruyere. The school kitchen was better equipped than most restaurants. My phone buzzed in my pocket. A text from James, my husband. "We need to talk about Madison." "My office after your shift." I typed back a quick oak between serving portions. James was the head of Westbrook's mathematics department, which was how we'd met 6 years ago when I first started working here. Back then, I was just the new lunch lady with a knack for turning institutional food into something special. He didn't know about my culinary degree from Le Cordon Bleu or the successful restaurants I'd owned in New York. Just like Madison didn't know that her poor stepmother had sold her restaurant empire for 8 figures after burning out from 20 years of 100-hour weeks. The lunch rush continued, but I kept catching snippets of Madison's conversation with her friends. Today seemed worse than usual. "At least she's not like teaching here," Madison was saying. "I mean, could you imagine? But Daddy says she likes simple work or whatever." Simple work. If only she knew how much calculation went into planning menus that satisfied both picky teenagers and the school's rigorous nutritional standards. Or how much of my own money I poured into upgrading the kitchen equipment and sourcing better ingredients. "Madison," I heard her friend Sophie whisper, not quietly enough, "isn't your tuition like $50,000? How can your dad afford it on a teacher's salary?" "Trust fund from my mom," Madison replied promptly. "She was like super rich before she died." That was the story James had let her believe. Easier than explaining that her stepmother's simple job was just a cover, that the trust fund was actually my money, carefully channeled through a series of accounts to preserve the fiction that Madison's lifestyle came from her late mother's family. The lunch period ended, and I started cleanup while my staff, all professionally trained chefs, who thought they were working for the school, handled the prep for tomorrow. James was waiting in his office when I arrived, looking troubled. At 45, he still had the handsome features that had first caught my eye, but today they were creased with worry. "I heard her," he said without preamble. "What she was saying about you." I sank into the leather chair across from his desk. "It's fine. She's 16. Everything embarrasses her." "It's not fine." He ran a hand through his salt and pepper hair. "You've put up with this for 5 years, Sarah. You've paid for everything. Her tuition, her horses, her summer programs in Europe. And she treats you like the lunch lady?" I smiled wryly. "I chose this, remember? After the burnout, the anxiety attacks, the 3 months in the hospital, I wanted simple, peaceful. Simple doesn't mean being disrespected by your own stepdaughter." I touched the pendant at my neck, a small golden whisk, the only piece of jewelry I'd kept from my restaurant days. She's still grieving her mother, James. Finding out I'm not who she thinks I am. It could hurt her more. Or it could teach her a valuable lesson about judging people. He leaned forward. "Sarah, I love that you found peace serving lunch to privileged kids. I love that you use your wealth to secretly make their meals better, to fund scholarships they don't know about, to support families who can barely afford the uniforms. But Madison needs to learn that worth isn't measured by job titles." "What are you suggesting?" He pulled out a folder, bank statements, property deeds, news articles about the legendary Sarah Chen, the chef who built a restaurant empire before disappearing from the culinary world 5 years ago. "Parents' night is next week," he said. "The school's looking for donors for the new culinary arts program. I think it's time for Sarah Chen to make a comeback, not as a chef, but as a benefactor." My heart raced. "James, let me finish. You won't have to go back to that life. But Madison should know that her lunch lady stepmother is the one making her dreams possible. That every time she mocks you for serving food, she's mocking the very person who makes sure she can attend this school. And as she resents me more for keeping the truth from her, then she'll learn another valuable lesson about humility, judgment, and the price of pride. He reached across the desk, taking my hand. Sarah Chin Roberts, you're the most amazing woman I've ever known. Let our daughter see that. Before I could respond, there was a knock at the door. Madison burst in, designer backpack slung over one shoulder. Daddy, can I? Oh, she stopped short seeing me. I didn't know you were busy. I started to stand, to give them privacy like I usually did, but James's hand tightened on mine. Actually, he said, this concerns you too. Sit down, Madison. There's something you need to know about Sarah. Madison's perfectly sculpted eyebrows drew together. What about her? James opened the folder, and I watched my stepdaughter's face as he began to tell her exactly who her lunch lady stepmother really was. Sometimes the simplest jobs hide the most complex truths, and sometimes the best lessons come served with a side of humble pie. Madison stared at the magazine covers spread across her father's desk. My face, younger, dressed in chef's whites, stared back from Forbes, Time, and Bon Appetit. New York's restaurant queen builds $300 million empire, one headline declared. This can't be. She picked up a detailed account statement, her hands shaking. These numbers are real, James said quietly. Every penny of your trust fund, your tuition, your summer in Paris last year. It all came from Sarah, not your mother's family. I watched the color drain from Madison's face as she connected the dots. But you serve lunch. You wear a hairnet. You choose to, I finished gently. After 20 years of running restaurants, dealing with critics, managing thousands of employees, I burned out. Ended up in a hospital with severe anxiety. That's when I realized I needed a change. So you sold everything to become a lunch lady? Her voice dripped with disbelief. No, James corrected. She sold everything to find peace. And then she chose to use her wealth and expertise to quietly make life better for hundreds of students, including you. Madison's eyes darted to the financial statements again. These donations to the school, the new science lab last year, the scholarship fund. All Sarah, James confirmed. She's Westbrook's largest private donor, has been since before we were married. A tear splashed onto the glossy magazine cover. Why didn't you tell me? I leaned forward. Because you needed to grieve your mother without complications. Because I didn't want you to feel obligated to love me because of money. And honestly, because I thought you might figure it out on your own. What do you mean? Madison, honey, did you really think public school cafeteria food includes Wagyu beef sliders and truffle mac and cheese? Did you never wonder why Westbrook's lunch program is featured in educational magazines? She blushed. I just thought, it's an expensive school. The food budget is actually quite modest, James interjected. Sarah supplements it with her own money. Just like she supplements your trust fund, your college savings, and half the school's operational costs. Madison's face crumpled. All those times I made fun of you, called you lunch lady in front of my friends, said you weren't good enough for Dad. Were moments you'll learn from, I finished. We all have those moments, sweetheart. What matters is what we do after we know better. But why keep working in the kitchen? You could do anything. I am doing what I want, I explained. Every day, I get to feed hundreds of growing minds without the stress of running a business empire. I get to make sure kids like Thomas, who's on scholarship, eat as well as kids with trust funds. It's not simple work, it's just quieter. James pulled out one more document. There's something else you should see. The plans for Westbrook's new culinary arts center. Madison scanned the paper, her eyes widening. This would be amazing. Professional-grade kitchens, classes with real chefs. Actually, I smiled, classes with me. If you approve, of course. It would mean everyone knowing who I really am. You teach? She looked up, really seeing me for the first time. But you said you didn't want to go back to that life. Teaching a few classes is different from running restaurants. Besides, I reached across the desk and squeezed her hand. I thought it might be something we could do together. You've always loved cooking, even if you never wanted to admit it to your friends. A flash of memory crossed her face, the time she'd lingered in the kitchen at home, watching me cook. The question she'd asked when she thought no one was paying attention. I did want to learn, but I thought, she swallowed hard. I thought it would make me like you. The you I thought you were. And now? Now I realize I should have been begging to be more like you all along. She stood up suddenly, circling the desk to hug me. I'm so sorry. For everything. I held her close, feeling years of tension dissolve. Nothing to be sorry for. We all have growing up to do, even adults who hide their past in hairnets. James cleared his throat. There's one more thing. Parents' night next week. Madison pulled back, wiping her eyes. Everyone's going to know, aren't they? That I've been awful to my stepmother, who's actually a famous chef and millionaire. They don't have to know everything, I assured her. But yes, Sarah Chen will be making an appearance as the donor for the new culinary program. Think you can handle that? She straightened her shoulders, looking so much like her father in that moment. Actually, could I introduce you? Maybe talk about how you've inspired me to consider culinary school. James and I exchanged surprised looks. Culinary school. I've been researching it secretly, she admitted, but I thought you'd both be disappointed in me. That it wasn't prestigious enough. I laughed, a real belly laugh that echoed off the office walls. Oh honey, wait until you see the prestige in creating something that brings joy to others. It's better than any trust fund. Speaking of funds, James added, maybe it's time Sarah showed you how to manage your own money. Real wealth isn't just about having it. It's about using it wisely. Madison nodded eagerly, then paused. Can we still have our Sunday morning pancake sessions, even when everyone knows you're not just the lunch lady? Especially then, I promised. But maybe we'll upgrade from regular maple syrup to the single origin aged maple syrup I've been hiding in the back of the pantry. She groaned. There are probably so many cooking secrets you've been holding back. Just a few hundred. I winked. But we have plenty of time to cover them all. Starting with why I really use truffle oil in the school mac and cheese. As we left Jane's office together, I heard whispers from passing students, saw them noting Madison's red eyes and my arm around her shoulders. But for once she didn't pull away or make an excuse. Sometimes the greatest recipes require time to perfect, and sometimes the best meals are the ones served with a side of truth. Parents' night arrived with the usual parade of designer outfits and luxury cars. But this time, I wasn't in the kitchen. Instead, I stood in the auditorium wings wearing a tailored suit that cost more than my yearly cafeteria salary. Ready? Madison squeezed my hand. She'd insisted on helping me get ready, doing my makeup and styling my hair. The transformation from lunch lady to restaurant mogul had left her speechless. Are you? I squeezed back. Once I walk out there, everyone will know I've been an entitled brat. She smiled wryly. Good. Maybe other kids will learn from my mistake. The headmaster was finishing his speech about the new Culinary Arts Center. And now, Madison Roberts would like to introduce our generous benefactor. Madison straightened her shoulders and walked onto the stage. Gone was the self-conscious teenager who'd once hidden from me in the hallways. In her place stood a young woman ready to face her own prejudices. Most of you know me, she began. And most of you have heard me complain about my stepmother working in our school kitchen. Nervous laughter rippled through the audience. What none of you knew, what I didn't know until recently, was that every lunch she served was a masterclass in humility, dignity, and the true meaning of success. She gestured toward the wings. Please welcome my stepmother, Sarah Chen Roberts, James Roberts' wife, my personal culinary inspiration, and the former CEO of Chen Restaurant Group. The audience's reaction as I walked out was everything Madison had predicted. Gasps, whispers, and dropped jaws from parents who had dismissed me as just the lunch lady. Sophie's mother actually spilled her champagne. Thank you, Madison, I said, hugging her before she left the stage. Facing the crowd, I smiled. Yes, I'm the one who's been serving your children lunch, and I wouldn't have it any other way. I explained my vision for the culinary program, not just cooking classes, but lessons in nutrition, business management, and social responsibility. How every student would learn to cook, but also to appreciate the dignity of service and the value of work at every level. And yes, I concluded, I'll still be running the cafeteria, though perhaps without the hairnet now that my cover's blown. The laughter was genuine this time, followed by thunderous applause. As I left the stage, I saw Thomas, my scholarship student, beaming from the back where he worked as a server for the event. Does this mean the mac and cheese will get even better, Mrs. Roberts? He called out. Come by the kitchen tomorrow, I winked. I'll teach you the secret recipe. The rest of the evening passed in a blur of handshakes and conversations. Parents who'd never given me a second glance now wanted to discuss investment opportunities. Students who barely looked at me suddenly remembered my name. But the real moment came later, at home, when Madison appeared in my kitchen wearing pajamas and a sheepish expression. "Can't sleep?" I asked, pulling out 2 mugs for hot chocolate, the real kind, with French chocolate and fresh cream. "I keep thinking about all the times I was horrible to you," she admitted, sliding onto a bar stool. "How you just took it, all while making sure I had everything I needed." I handed her a mug. "That's what mothers do, step or otherwise." "Is that why you didn't tell me sooner? Because you were trying to be a good mom?" "Partly," I nodded. "But also because I needed to be sure I could be happy with my new life before I explained it to anyone else. Success isn't just about money or fame, Madison. It's about finding peace with who you are." She sipped her chocolate thoughtfully. "Is that why you're really starting the culinary program, to share that lesson?" "That, and because watching you discover your passion for cooking has reminded me why I fell in love with it in the first place." I pulled out a wrapped package. "Which is why I want you to have this." Inside was my old chef's coat from Le Cordon Bleu, carefully preserved. "It's time for a new generation to wear it," I said softly. Madison hugged me, chocolate forgotten. "I love you, Mom," she whispered, the first time she'd ever called me that. Sometimes the best recipes aren't found in cookbooks, but in the moments we least expect. And sometimes the finest ingredients for happiness are simply truth, forgiveness, and a perfectly made cup of hot chocolate.